I spent years helping my friend build his company from the ground up. When the money started rolling in, he decided he didn't need me anymore, kicking me out without a second thought. I walked away without making a scene, but behind the scenes I started planting seeds. My name is Mark Thompson. I used to work at a company I helped build from the ground up. It all started with my friend, Charlie. We had an idea, a simple one, but we believed in it. We thought we could turn it into something big. We spent countless hours working in a small, cramped office. We made many sacrifices, giving up weekends and late nights to make it work. Together, we turned our dream into a thriving business. In those early days, Charlie and I were more than just business partners. We were close friends. We shared everything, from the excitement of landing our first big client to the stress of meeting deadlines. We trusted each other completely. We had a common goal and a shared vision. We both wanted the company to succeed, and we worked tirelessly to make it happen. As the business began to grow, things started to change. First, it was small things. Charlie would take credit for work we had done together. He would make decisions without discussing them with me. I brushed it off, thinking he was just under pressure. But soon, these small things turned into bigger issues. Charlie started to become distant. He spent more time with the new executives we hired and less time with me. He seemed to enjoy the spotlight, taking every opportunity to be the face of the company. I noticed he was making decisions without consulting me at all. It was like he was slowly pushing me out of the picture. One day, we had a meeting scheduled. It was a regular Monday morning, nothing special. I walked into the office, expecting to discuss the upcoming projects. But Charlie was different that day. He seemed tense, avoiding eye contact. I knew something was wrong. Charlie sat me down and told me that my services were no longer needed. Just like that, with no warning. He said the company was going in a new direction and that I was not part of that plan. I sat there, stunned, trying to process what he had just said. Felt like a punch in the gut. I had given so much to this company, and now I was being discarded like I didn't matter. I left the office that day feeling betrayed and confused. The trust one had in Charlie was shattered. I couldn't understand how he could do this to me. We had started this journey together, and now he was cutting me out. It was a painful realization. The camaraderie and trust we once had were gone, replaced by a sense of betrayal. As I walked out of the building, I thought about all the years I had spent there. The long hours, the sacrifices, the moments of triumph and failure. Felt like it was all for nothing. I felt lost, unsure of what to do next. I went home and sat in silence for a long time. I replayed the conversation with Charlie in my head, trying to make sense of it all. I wondered how things had changed so much. How did we go from being partners to this? It was a question that haunted me. That day marked the beginning of the end of one chapter of my life. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I knew I had to move forward. I realized that the company I helped build was no longer the place I knew. It was time for me to let go and figure out what was next. This was the end of my journey with the company, but it was also the start of something new. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to face it. It was time to take a step back, reflect, and plan my next move. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it. After leaving the company, I spent some time just trying to understand what had happened. I felt lost and hurt. My mind was full of questions. Why did Charlie do this? Was it something I did? These thoughts kept me awake at night. But I knew I couldn't stay stuck in these feelings. I had to look forward and think about what to do next. I decided not to react with anger. Instead, I wanted to be smart about how I handled this situation. I took some time to think carefully and plan my next steps. I needed a strategy, not a confrontation. I knew Charlie well, and I understood how the company worked. This knowledge could be my strength. I started by reaching out to people I knew in the industry. Over the years, I had made many connections. These people respected me and valued my opinion. I began to tell them about my situation, without mentioning Charlie's betrayal. I just said I was looking for new opportunities. Many of them were sympathetic and offered help. With their support, I started laying the groundwork for a plan. I knew Charlie's weaknesses. He was ambitious, often blinded by his desire for success. I decided to use that to my advantage. I began creating a series of opportunities that looked promising but were not what they seemed. I came up with the idea of fake partners and clients. These were not real businesses, but they looked legitimate on paper. I used my industry knowledge to make them believable. I knew what Charlie was looking for and how to present these opportunities in a way that would attract him. The plan was simple. Introduce these fake partners to Charlie's company. They would look like great opportunities, but they were designed to drain the company's resources over time. It was a subtle way to undermine the company without direct confrontation. As I set these plans in motion, I felt a quiet resolve. This was not about revenge. It was about making sure Charlie understood the consequences of his actions. I wanted him to realize that his decisions had a cost. I was determined to make him see the error of his ways. I fed on Charlie's ego and ambition. I knew he would jump at the chance to expand the company and make it even more successful. He wouldn't see the trap until it was too late. It was a calculated risk, but I was willing to take it. The days turned into weeks as I continued to work on my plan. I stayed in touch with my industry contacts, ensuring everything was in place. The fake partners had websites, contact information, and everything they needed to appear legitimate. It was all set up perfectly. During this time, I kept my emotions in check. I didn't let anger or resentment take over. I focused on the task at hand, knowing that this was the best way to handle the situation. I was calm and methodical, watching from a distance as my plan began to take shape. I knew it would take time for everything to fall into place. But I was patient. I watched and waited, knowing that soon enough, Charlie would take the bait. The fake opportunities were too tempting for him to ignore. This was my way of regaining control. Charlie had taken something important from me, but now I was turning the tables. I was no longer the one being pushed aside. Instead, I was the one setting the stage, ready to see how it would all play out. With every step, I felt a sense of purpose returning. I was not just reacting to what Charlie had done. I was actively shaping the outcome. It was empowering to know that I was no longer at the mercy of someone else's decisions. I was taking charge of my own destiny, and it felt good. With the fake partners and clients ready, I began to introduce them to Charlie's company. This required careful planning. I had to make sure everything looked real and promising. I used my industry knowledge to craft convincing stories for these fake entities. They had histories, portfolios, and even testimonials. I left nothing to chance. I knew Charlie would be eager to expand and seize new opportunities. He was always on the lookout for the next big thing. I approached him through mutual contacts, ensuring the introductions seemed natural. The fake partners were presented as exciting prospects that could take the company to new heights. Charlie, as expected, was intrigued. He didn't suspect anything. He welcomed these opportunities with open arms. I watched as he embraced these new ventures, unaware of their true nature. It was almost too easy. He was too focused on potential success to see the cracks beneath the surface. The thrill of watching the plan unfold was unexpected. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was satisfied to see Charlie fall into the trap. But another part was sad. This was a man I once called a friend. Yet, the sense of betrayal was still fresh in my mind, pushing me forward. As Charlie became more entangled with these fake partners, the company's resources started to strain. The partnerships required investments, time, and energy. Charlie poured everything into them, convinced they would bring great returns. I knew he was stretching the company thin, but he didn't see it. He was blind to the warning signs. During this time, I kept a low profile. I didn't want anyone to trace these dealings back to me. I was careful with every step, ensuring my involvement remained hidden. The fake partners communicated through intermediaries, keeping my name out of it. This was crucial. I needed to remain in the shadows. I watched as Charlie juggled the demands of these new ventures. He was excited, even as his team struggled to keep up. The cracks in the company's foundation were starting to show. I could see the stress in Charlie's demeanor, although he tried to hide it. My plan was working, but I had to remain patient. I couldn't rush things. The fake partners were designed to be long-term investments. It would take time for Charlie to realize they were not what they seemed. Until then, I continued to pull the strings quietly. The anticipation built as I saw the company's focus shift. Charlie was too busy managing these new projects to notice other issues. He was distracted, and that played into my hands. I knew it was only a matter of time before the consequences of his decisions became clear. I kept tabs on everything from a distance. I had people within the industry feeding me information about the company's progress. This allowed me to adjust my plans if needed. But so far, everything was going smoothly. Charlie was falling deeper into the trap I had set. There was a certain irony in watching it all unfold. The company that Charlie had pushed me out of was now struggling because of his own actions. He had made choices without considering the full picture, and now he was facing the consequences. I felt a sense of power in knowing I had orchestrated this situation. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about showing Charlie the impact of his decisions. He needed to understand that his actions had real consequences, and I was determined to make sure he did. As the days went by, I continued to monitor the situation closely. The fake partners were demanding more, and the company was starting to feel the strain. I knew that soon, the cracks would widen, and Charlie would realize the truth. Until then, I remained in the background, waiting for the perfect moment to see it all come to light. With the fake opportunities in full swing, I turned my attention to the company's most valuable asset, its employees. I knew that without the right team, any business would struggle. Charlie had some of the best people working for him. They were talented, dedicated, and crucial to the company's success. I decided it was time to change that. I reached out to my contacts in the industry once again. Many respected companies were looking for skilled employees. I started to connect these companies with Charlie's top talent. It was all done quietly behind the scenes. I wanted to offer these employees better opportunities elsewhere, in places where they would be appreciated. It wasn't difficult to convince them. Many of them were already frustrated with the changes in the company. They felt overworked and undervalued. Charlie's focus on the new ventures had left them feeling neglected. I offered them positions where their skills and potential would be recognized and rewarded. I approached them with genuine concern for their careers. I didn't push them to leave. I simply presented them with options. The decision was theirs, but most were eager to explore new possibilities. They wanted to work where they could grow and feel valued. It was an easy choice for them. As the weeks passed, I began to see the effects of my efforts. One by one, Charlie's best employees started to leave. They accepted offers from other companies and moved on to better opportunities. It was a quiet exodus, but it was significant. The company was losing its core team, and Charlie was too distracted to notice the pattern. At first, he dismissed the departures as minor setbacks. He thought they could be replaced easily. But soon, he realized that the talent drain was more serious than he had anticipated. The new projects demanded expertise, and the company was struggling to cope without its key players. I watched as Charlie scrambled to fill the gaps. He tried to hire new people, but it wasn't the same. The new employees lacked the experience and understanding of the company's culture. They were thrown into the deep end, and it showed. The quality of work began to suffer, and deadlines were missed. Charlie was caught up in the supposed new deals, unaware of the bigger picture. He didn't see that his focus on the fake opportunities was costing him the very foundation of his company. The once strong and united team was now fragmented and struggling. I kept my distance, observing how things unfolded. I knew that the loss of key employees would weaken the company further. It was part of the plan, a necessary step to show Charlie the consequences of his choices. Without the right team, his ambitious plans were falling apart. The tension was building as the company's performance started to dip. Clients were unhappy, and projects were delayed. Charlie was feeling the pressure, but he was still blind to the root cause. He couldn't connect the dots, and that played right into my hands. I continued to watch from the sidelines, knowing that the situation was reaching a tipping point. Charlie's empire was starting to crumble from within, and it was only a matter of time before he realized the full extent of the damage. This phase of the plan was crucial. It wasn't just about removing people from the company. It was about removing the very elements that made it strong. Without his core team, Charlie was left with a shell of what once was. I knew that soon, he would have to face the reality of his situation. As the days went on, I felt a sense of satisfaction. I had set things in motion, and now I was seeing the results. The company was unraveling, and Charlie was struggling to hold it all together. I knew that the next steps would be critical, and I was ready to see it through to the end. As the company began to falter, Charlie found himself in a whirlwind of confusion. He was struggling to understand why everything was falling apart. His once thriving business was now a shadow of its former self, and he was desperate to find a solution. I watched from afar, seeing the frustration and desperation build within him. Every day, Charlie faced new challenges. The fake partners began demanding even more resources, and the company was stretched thin. The projects that seemed promising at first were now turning into burdens. The pressure was mounting, and Charlie was feeling it. The loss of his key employees was having a significant impact. The new hires couldn't keep up with the demands, and the quality of work suffered. Clients were unhappy, and complaints were piling up. Charlie was trying to put out fires everywhere, but it was clear he was overwhelmed. I felt a mix of satisfaction and melancholy watching it all unfold. This was the company I had helped build, now unraveling because of Charlie's choices. I recalled moments from the past, the camaraderie and shared victories. It was hard to see those memories replaced by the present chaos, but I knew this was the path we were on. Then came a twist I had anticipated. One of the fake clients demanded payment for services never rendered. It was a crucial part of the plan, designed to push Charlie closer to financial ruin. The demand caught him off guard. He hadn't prepared for such a setback, and it threw him into a tailspin. Charlie tried to negotiate, to reason with the client, but it was futile. The client was insistent, and the financial strain was becoming unbearable. Charlie realized he was running out of options. The company was bleeding money, and he was struggling to keep it afloat. I stayed in the shadows, ensuring my involvement remained hidden. I didn't want anyone to connect the dots back to me. This was Charlie's battle to fight, and I was just an observer. I had set the stage, and now it was Charlie's turn to face the consequences. As the weeks went by, I saw the toll it was taking on him. Charlie was exhausted, both physically and mentally. He was trying to salvage what he could, but the situation was dire. The cracks in the company were now gaping holes, and he couldn't ignore them any longer. I knew that my plan was working, but seeing Charlie struggle also brought a sense of sadness. This was someone I once called a friend. Yet, the betrayal still lingered, reminding me why I had set this plan in motion. I wanted him to understand the cost of his actions, and now he was starting to see. The company's unraveling was almost complete. The once thriving business was now on the brink of collapse. Charlie was fighting to hold it together, but it was clear he was losing the battle. The empire he had built was crumbling, and there was little he could do to stop it. I continued to watch, knowing that soon, the final pieces would fall into place. Charlie was running out of time, and the reckoning was approaching. It was only a matter of time before he had to confront the reality of his situation. Throughout all this, I remained detached. I had done what I set out to do, and now I was waiting for the final act. Charlie's world was falling apart, and I was ready to see how it would end. The unraveling was almost complete, and soon, he would have to face the truth. The company was now on the brink of collapse. Charlie was overwhelmed, trying to piece together what went wrong. He was facing the reality of the situation, and it was hitting him hard. The realization of the deception was dawning on him, and he was desperate for answers. In his search for the truth, Charlie began to examine the connections between the fake opportunities and the employee exodus. He started to see the pattern, the links between the new ventures that had drained the company's resources and the loss of his most valuable team members. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, and the picture was not a pretty one. I watched as Charlie struggled with this new understanding. It was a difficult truth to face, knowing that he had been deceived. Everything he had worked for was crumbling, and he was powerless to stop it. The irony was not lost on him, and I could see the weight of his decisions bearing down on him. There was tension in the air as Charlie tried to uncover the source of his downfall. He was determined to find out who was behind the fake opportunities, but I had covered my tracks well. It was a web of deceit, designed to keep me out of the spotlight. Charlie was left with more questions than answers, and it was taking a toll on him. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of closure. Charlie was finally facing the consequences of his actions. The betrayal he had inflicted on me was now coming back to him. I had orchestrated this downfall without a single public move, and it was satisfying to see it all play out. I considered reaching out to Charlie to offer some words of comfort or explanation, but I ultimately decided against it. This was a journey he had to complete on his own. He needed to come to terms with the reality of his situation without my interference. It was a hard lesson, but one that needed to be learned. As the days passed, Charlie's empire continued to crumble. The fake clients were demanding more, and the company's financial situation was dire. The once thriving business was now a shell of its former self, and Charlie was struggling to keep it afloat. He was trying to salvage what he could, but it was clear he was losing the battle. I stayed in the background, watching as the final pieces fell into place. Charlie was on the brink of financial ruin, and there was little he could do to stop it. The reckoning had arrived, and he was facing the harsh truth of his situation. Throughout all this, I remained detached. I had achieved what I set out to do, and now it was time to let it unfold naturally. Charlie was facing the consequences of his choices, and I was ready to see how it would all end. The empire he had built was crumbling, and soon he would have to face the truth. The tension reached its peak as Charlie realized the full extent of the deception. He was left with a company in ruins, and there was no one to blame but himself. The irony was clear, and it was a hard pill for him to swallow. I watched as Charlie struggled with the reality of his situation. It was a difficult truth to face, but it was necessary. He had to understand the cost of his actions, and now he was starting to see. The reckoning was complete, and it was time for him to face the consequences. As the dust settled, I felt a sense of completion. I had set the stage, and now it was time to let it play out. Charlie was facing the reality of his decisions, and I was ready to move on. The reckoning was over, and it was time to focus on what came next. With the reckoning complete and Charlie facing the aftermath, I took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. The journey from betrayal to resolution had been long and complicated. I thought about the nature of friendship, trust, and what it meant to be betrayed by someone close to you. It was hard to reconcile the past with the present, but it was something I needed to do. I wondered if I had done the right thing. In my quest to show Charlie the consequences of his actions, I had orchestrated his downfall. It wasn't an easy path, and the destruction of the company weighed on me. But I knew it was necessary. Charlie needed to understand that his decisions had a real cost, both for himself and for those around him. As I considered my next steps, I received unexpected news. A company I respected reached out to me with a job offer. They recognized my experience and integrity, and they wanted me to take on a leadership role. It was an opportunity one hadn't anticipated, and it made me pause. The offer was tempting, and it came at the right time. I was ready to move on from the past and focus on building something new. This was a chance to start fresh, to apply the lessons I had learned and create something meaningful. I accepted the offer, feeling a sense of relief and excitement about the future. With this new role, I had the chance to shape the direction of a company once again. I was determined to use my experience to make a positive impact, to build a team that valued trust and collaboration. The mistakes of the past would not be repeated. I was wiser now, and I intended to use that wisdom to guide my decisions. As I prepared to step into this new chapter, I felt a sense of closure. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was there, but it was time to move forward. I was ready to focus on what came next, to leave behind the shadows of the past and embrace the possibilities of the future. I thought about Charlie and what he might be going through. Despite everything, I hoped he would learn from this experience. Maybe he would rebuild, or maybe he would find a new path. Whatever the case, I hoped he would find peace and understanding. In my new role, I was determined to foster a culture of trust and respect. I knew the importance of having a team that worked together towards a common goal. I wanted to create an environment where people felt valued and appreciated. It was a chance to make a difference, and I was ready to take it. As I settled into my new position, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The past was behind me, and the future was full of potential. I was ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. It was time to build something strong and lasting, something that would stand the test of time. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that this was not just about Charlie or the company. It was about understanding myself and what I was capable of. I had faced betrayal and come out the other side stronger and more determined. It was a hard road, but it was worth it. With a clear mind and a hopeful heart, I looked to the future. This was a new beginning, and I was ready to make the most of it. The lessons of the past would guide me, and I was excited to see what I could achieve. It was time to move forward, leaving the past behind and focusing on the bright possibilities ahead. For more revenge stories, subscribe to the channel.